Good afternoon. We love big and noisy crowds. It's wonderful. Good afternoon. Peace and joy be with you. You're drained. My name is Elaine Price. I am the president of the Board of Trustees here at the community of St. Peter. We're thrilled to have such a wonderful speaker today and also such a wonderful group of people who are staying around for this really important topic. Just a couple of logistical items. If you're new to our space here in the Baker Electric Building, restrooms are out and to the right, and they're on your right-hand side, along with a drinking fountain. We may still have some coffee and food from our coffee hour in our gathering area, and you're more than welcome to grab something and bring it in here. Do we still have the postcard table up? So one of our social justice groups, AMI, has some postcards for writing to our elected officials on the topics of immigration. And so you can stop by there and look that up, get involved in that way. We are going to kick off with a prayer, and so I'm going to call forth Martha Ligas, our pastoral minister, to lead us in that.
All right. Welcome. God of the margins, you showed us what it means to stand in solidarity with one another. In the Gospel of Matthew, we read, "For I was hungry, and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you invited me in." In our confusion, we asked, "When did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you something to drink? When did we see you a stranger?" Truly, you remind us, whenever we care for our neighbor in this way, we care for you. Help us, God, to be compassionate, knowing that the path to love is always the best way forward. Help us, God, to be creative when the path to love must be forged anew. Help us, God, to be courageous when obstacles stand in our way. You showed us how to love our neighbors. Now may we go and do likewise. Amen. I'd like to bring up Gordon Landefeld, who will introduce our speaker. Gordon is Director of Marketing and IT for the immigration law firm Margaret W. Wong and Associates. Gordon, welcome.
I have the distinct honor to introduce the once and future Judge Tania T. Nemer. Ms. Nemer, a dual citizen of Lebanon and the United States, was born and raised in Akron, Ohio. Her parents and many aunts and uncles immigrated from Lebanon and all settled close together in Akron. She grew up attending Our Lady of Cedars Church in Fairlawn, a Lebanese Maronite parish, and still attends Our Lady of Cedars. Ms. Nemer speaks Arabic and Spanish. She graduated from Walsh Jesuit High School, earned her Bachelor of Arts from John Carroll in 2001, and earned her JD Law degree at Western Michigan University in 2006. Ms. Nemer was admitted to the Ohio Bar and the U.S. District Court, Northern District of Ohio. Her first legal job was for McGinty, Hilo, and Spellacy, where she practiced criminal and immigration law. In 2014, she joined the Catholic Charities Diocese of Cleveland Office of Migration and Refugee Services as senior immigration attorney. In 2019, she was appointed as a magistrate of the Akron Municipal Court. She also served as the managing immigration attorney at the International Justice Institute of Akron. From 2020 to 2023, she served as the community outreach prosecutor and assistant prosecutor for Summit County. In 2023, she was appointed as magistrate of the Summit County Probate Court, where she presided over cases involving guardianships, civil commitments, and estates. On August 11, 2023, the Department of Justice's Executive Office for Immigration Review, or EOIR, announced that Tania T. Nemer was appointed immigration judge at the Cleveland Immigration Court. On February 5th, 2025, barely 1.5 years on the job, while on the bench overseeing a hearing, Ms. Nemer was interrupted by EOIR staff saying that she was terminated effective immediately and was escorted out of the building. Currently, Ms. Nemer works as the Deputy Chief in the Tax Division, Summit County Prosecutor's Office, and in February, she announced her candidacy for judge in Summit County. Ms. Nemer lives in Boston Heights with her husband, Joe, and 3 kids, ages 13, 11, and 8. She's active on the Village of Boston Heights Planning Commission. She also serves on the International Institute of Akron Board of Directors, the Hudson Cultural Proficiency Advisory Committee, the Community Engagement Committee, Girl Scouts of Northeast Ohio, the Hudson Parent-Teacher Organization, and the Assad Aboud Foundation, where she is board member and secretary. I invite you to review her resume on her website, nemerforjudge.com, for many accomplishments and accolades not mentioned today. Ms. Nemer recently participated in a panel discussion on immigration at the Akron Summit County Public Library, and on June 5th will speak at the First Friday Club of Akron. Welcome, Judge Nemer, to the community of St. Peter.
And then just quickly, 2 things. On top of that, she's married with 3 kids and plays pickleball. We kind of want to we were going to do questions. There are cards laying around if you want to write questions down. We don't want to be passing the microphone, but Judge Nemer would also like to make this interactive. So if you do have questions, you will lead on that. I'll be meandering around and I might call on you, and then I have a loud voice so I can repeat questions. The passing the microphone is not always the best. So again, join us in welcoming. Thank you so much. Thank you for being here.
It's so good to be here. And then let me know how I need to change that slide as I move through. Okay, well, this is it. Oh, yeah, it does. Okay. Yeah. Okay, wow. Thank you. Thank you all for being here today, and thank you for that wonderful introduction. I'm truly blessed to be a part of your day today. Sundays are always my favorite day of the week, just for the calming of it and church, and just, you know, I just remember when I was a kid, my dad would, if he was mad at me during the week, I knew once Sunday came along and we'd go to church together, he'd be forgiving of any of my sins. So I always was waiting till Sunday. I think maybe still to this day. God love him. I'm also happy to be not just in front of all of you today, but one of my good friends here, Stacy Kozart Martin from Martin and Jolick Law Firm is here as well, and it's really great to have you a part of this conversation, so thanks so much for being here. And she's an immigration attorney, longtime immigration attorney who I used to volunteer with. We still volunteer together, so it's good to be here. And from what I hear, a lot of you volunteer in immigration. A lot of you are, some of you are well-versed in helping others, immigrants, and welcoming our strangers. And I want to make this interactive. I know you probably have a lot on your mind as it comes to immigration. I do too. And I think there's a lot of questions out there, and I want to have this as an interactive conversation. I put these slides together not to lecture. It's just more to get conversation going. But the feeling I have of all of you, and I just met you for the first time, is that I think we can have a conversation going right off the bat, and we can make it take a long time, and I'm okay with that. I remember, I love Sundays. They're slow, so we're just going to enjoy our time together. So when I do talks, I've noticed that a lot of people ask questions on immigration law and like, how did it start? Like, where, you ever wonder why do we have rules that control and govern how human beings, where human beings live, right? Like, we just listened to the prayer of, you were my stranger and I welcomed you. And I think that's a philosophy on any religion or any faith or any human, interest, right? That we do that, but then we created laws, right? And I just want to talk a little bit about early immigration. Like, we all know we had the European colonists, we had African slaves, and then after that we had the Irish and the German immigrants come in. And that was between the 1600s and the 1800s. And I'm just moving through this because remember, I want conversation to start. So feel free to raise your hands as we move on. But you might tend to see themes in our laws in America. Eventually we had Ellis Island and On Hill Island. And you had your main entry points. You had the East Coast and the West Coast. Usually the Europeans were coming in through Ellis Island. You had the Asians coming in from On Hill Island, and they had different experiences. So on the West Coast, the Asians were not as welcomed as the Europeans coming in through Ellis Island. Ellis Island, you're signing a book, maybe have a little interview, right? And on Hill Island, it was a little more than that. And things kind of started getting heated, and that's where you're starting to see our America create more policies and rules on who and what culture can come into the United States. So you'll see we had our waves between 1880 and 1920. We then created, because of that West Coast Asian, lots of them coming in, seeing that I don't know what the philosophy was behind it, but my guess is there was a philosophy that we have too many Asians coming in. And so they created the Chinese Exclusion Act. And that's to limit the amount of Asians that were coming in. And it put a kind of a stop on a certain nationality, right? And that's where you saw your first laws being created, immigration law, right? And that was between 1880 and 1920. I don't remember if I put in there what year that law was passed, but we created that's what started quotas, right? And as my friend Stacy Cozart Martin, who is a current attorney and does a lot of employment and family immigration, will tell you, when we create these quotas, it changes a lot. I know you. You want me to speak into the mic? Sorry, guys. Is that better? Were you able to hear me before? Okay. Were you able to hear me before? Okay. So these quotas, as immigration attorneys and individuals who represent immigrants, these quotas, there's a chart. There is an actual chart on quotas that have been created in America. And I think that started with that Chinese Exclusion Act, because we're saying we don't want a certain country to come in, and we're going to limit how much they can come in. And so today we have this chart. It's still here, same chart, it's very old. And it goes by country, right? It'll tell you Mexico. It'll tell you, I think it's like Chinese, Philippine, Indian, and then all other or something like that. And the countries are here, and then the years of when they're getting processed, their applications are getting processed. And I don't know that the intent of these charts were meant to I don't know what the intent was. I have a feeling these charts were made because I've read certain things where they wanted to diversify America. They were getting in a certain amount of culture. They wanted to change that, and so they limited certain cultures. And they said, if you want to apply for a family member, you want this person from this country to come in, you're going to have to follow this chart, and some of you may have to wait longer than others. And this chart has never been updated. And so it's old. And we have different cultures coming in. And we still have this chart that we have to follow. And I'll give you an example. If you are a sibling of someone from Mexico, and you're a U.S. citizen, and you want to apply for your Mexican brother to come to the United States, how long do you think that will take? So we had 15 years. I heard 20 years. Any other takers? 5 years. 8. It's more than all those numbers. Yeah, it's about 24 years for a sibling to come. You're close, very close. So it's 24 years for that. But Europeans can enter a lottery system and come within a year, right? So Slovenians, they're all right. They can still, yeah, they don't have to wait that long. Like the Lebanese, theirs is 12 years. So, I mean, I don't know. It just kind of depends on where you're from. And that's how our law is. And so that's what we're following, and that is, everyone has opinions on what that means to them. Some people will say the darker your skin, the longer it takes. Some people will say, I don't think it was meant to diversify our nation, it's inhibiting it. Some people will say, well, no, it's meant to diversify. You take what you want from that, but we do have the chart, it still exists. You can Google it, but if you want to bring a family member over, you got to follow the chart. And the processing times are taking even longer because, our federal system has been hit with the employees and being removed, and our processes are taking a lot longer. So we're going to see, we've already seen a backlog in immigration, and we're about to see a lot more. So now, what is immigration? What do you guys think immigration is? I mean, do we have any takers on this? Go ahead.
I think it's from the perspective of the government of the country. And an immigrant is someone who is not a citizen, but who wants to enter into the country for residency or citizenship.
Yeah, and did everyone hear that? It is exactly it. An immigrant is somebody from one country who wants to enter into another country, and that's simply stated, right? I think it's what we've talked about in the prayer that we just heard, the stranger who's knocking on the door, right, and asking to come in and be welcomed. So we have immigration as a whole, one stranger trying to come into another person's home, right? Let's talk a little bit about refugees and asylees, and I think people interchange them, and they are similar, but they are different as well. Does anybody know, what asylum or what a refugee is? Yes, sir. Yeah, that's correct. He said there are people who want to get away from something, and that's exactly it. All the clients that I've had who were refugees or asylees, they never said, oh yeah, I wanted to leave my home. None of them ever said that to me. They have said to me, I had to leave my home. And for both of them, the similarity is they're leaving for the same reason. They're being persecuted for their race, religion, nationality, their membership to a particular social group, their gender. They're leaving their country because they're persecuted for those reasons, right? And there have to be certain reasons under the law that I've just listed, their race, religion, nationality, those so forth. Both of them have to prove that. I'm being persecuted for these reasons. The difference between the two is that the refugee is asking America to welcome them from a different country. They're not in America. The refugee is outside of the United States. The asylee is knocking on the door inside of the United States asking to come in at the border. So the difference you need to know is the refugee is outside the United States fleeing persecution, and the asylee is inside the United States fleeing persecution. And when I was a judge, I heard a lot of asylum cases for asylees, because so what would happen is they would come to the United States, they'd knock on our door and say, please help me, I'm being persecuted because of my race. And what America would do is say, okay, we're going to do a credible fear interview for you. And that's just to determine if it's a low standard. We're just going to determine if we believe you're honest enough in your claim and that you have some sort of a claim that could be litigated, adjudicated in court. And if you do, we'll let you continue in. And if you don't, we'll send you back. And so they do this interview. They do them quick. It's an hour each person. I went down to the border twice. I've worked with individuals who are knocking on the door and talk to them about their travels and what it took for them to get to America. And boy, was it a lot. like they put their life at risk, but their life was already at risk, so to come here. And so they then knocked on the door and they did their credible fear interview, and then when they pass the credible fear interview, the officer will then say, okay, well, where do you want to go in the United States to litigate your case? Because you have to go to a court. In Ohio, we have one court for all Ohioans, and that's in Cleveland, Ohio. So if you say, I have family members in Cincinnati, I'd like to go to Cincinnati, I'll litigate my court case in Ohio, you're going to have to drive from Cincinnati to Cleveland for your case. And so usually what happens is when they are successful in their credible fear interview, they'll say, like, my cousin's friend's brother lives in Ohio. That's how they get to Ohio, right? Like, it's just happens to be where they're going to end up finding a place to stay and where they adjudicate their case. And then that's how their case comes into our court. And then the judge's job is to listen to them. And now it's a higher standard. They have to prove that they're fleeing persecution based on those reasons. And we take testimony, they submit evidence, and there's cross-examination from DHS, and we listen to the case, and then we make a decision. Ohio has one of the highest rates where they decline asylum, and their grant rates are the lowest, one of the lowest in the United States, the Cleveland court. So that's the difference again, refugee and asylee, one is inside the United States, the other is outside the United States. The ones who are outside the United States, that's where you see Catholic Charities come in, they're resettlement agencies. And places like International Institute of Akron and other areas that they resettle refugees, but those refugees went through this credible fear process outside of the United States. The UN kind of handled it. They do all the background checks, they do it all outside of the United States. So by the time you come in, you've already passed everything, and all you have to do is apply for a green card. You've litigated it all. And they've background checked you all, and it could be for 20 years, 10 years, whatever it takes. They then will let you come in. And the way for refugees, and I am going to go back because I do think it's important, the way refugees come to the United States is after the UN does that process outside of the United States, then the United States gets to pick how many people they want to come in. How many refugees will they allow this year? And every year, the president gets to pick that. You know, some presidents the numbers will go higher. Some presidents, the numbers will go lower. I don't know, I think, and I don't know, Stacy Cozart-Martin, is this the lowest number you've seen in your experience? Because it is in mine. Yeah. It was 0 for a long, I think we're at 7,000 now. All United States.
I think we are streaming this. Sorry.
She has a loud voice, I know it.
I'm used to yelling. What I was saying was that even if you enter as a refugee and you've gone through the appropriate processes and have been vetted by the government a bazillion times, you now, when you enter, within 1 year, have to file for a green card. And traditionally, even if you didn't file, you were lawfully here in the United States. This administration, about 2 weeks ago, has decided that they're going to place refugees into detention facilities, whether they have an adjustment application pending or not, and they will have to remain detained until their case is adjudicated. The problem is that this administration has placed those cases on hold and are not making decisions. So even though you have done exactly what you have been told to do.
Okay, so I'm going to repeat what she's saying. So what we were just kind of going back and forth talking about is that every president has the right to decide how many refugees come into the United States. And some can say, I want, 70,000. Many European countries and so forth, their numbers were always much higher than America. This year, our president has said, I'm going to allow 7,000, and essentially I'm going to allow them all to be from South Africa. And that, if that's not at all what minimizes it. What Attorney Cozart Martin has been saying is, when the refugees come, remember I told you, their case is adjudicated outside of the United States. They've gone through the process, the rigorous background check for years and years and years. The UN has approved them, and then they get approved to come here. America's going to say, okay, yeah, you can come here, but then when you come here, I could still detain you in prison. Because remember I said when they get here, they could apply for a green card, right? They come here legally, they're accepted and admitted into the United States, but they still have to apply for a green card, and they all do. Like that, they go to Catholic Charities, they'll go wherever, and they'll apply for that green card. It's not an automatic, but it is the automatic process that gets filed. I could say in the hundreds and hundreds of applications that I've done, I've never seen them really reject them because they've gone through that process already. They just need the card, right? And so they have a year, they have to do it after a year of being in the United States. What our president has decided is in that year, they can be picked up and detained because the card isn't in their hand, because we don't give it to them, right? We're make them wait, right? And can you hear me? Okay. So I heard concentration camps, right? I want to walk. I feel constrained.
Yeah, my point is we have concentration camps now. We didn't have them before. I'm trying to understand why we do.
So, I mean, I'm going to call them detention centers. Maybe we can call them prisons or concentration camps, whatever you choose. We have a lot of them right now. You know, we've reopened many of them. I work down in Dilley at the border. They had closed it for a while. It's now reopened. These, you know, you're allowed to have these. These are not illegal, right? How we're putting people in there could be illegal depending on the case. What the president is saying is that if you don't have your green card in hand, which no one does, because that's not the process, I could put you in there. And legal, there's a fight there, but he you know, the executive branch has a lot of power over immigration. I mean, a lot of times in Trump 1, I would hear lawyers say, well, that's not fair, that's not right, that's not legal. I'm like, well, actually, technically it is. There's things, they have a lot of control over what they do, right? Because it's an administrative function. And we have to remember that, this is controlled by, our executive branch. And they have a lot of leeway and power to do what they're doing. Can they do it illegally? No. Can they infringe on our due process rights? They shouldn't, no. And can we fight that? Correct, yes. And that's where our courts come in, right? That's the beauty of the judiciary. I see a question here.
Hold on, Joe. We're going to have you speak into the mic.
It's happening because Congress hasn't updated immigration laws for quite a while.
That's a great question. So the question is a lot of this happening because Congress hasn't updated immigration laws for a long time? And it's who we vote for too. Our vote matters. Who we vote for matters. And we vote for Congress and we vote for our executive branch. And so, and when changes aren't being made and systems aren't being updated, but the world is still moving, after all these years, and the world is changing, a lot of problems could happen if we're not keeping up to date. And, as a judge, my job was to explain to you your rights and responsibilities when you come into the court. Well, there's not a lot of rights and responsibilities afforded to immigrants. You don't have, I say you have the right to an attorney at your own expense, okay? You do have a right to have your case heard, right? You can cross-examine witnesses, you can present evidence, but I ask you this, how much evidence do you think an individual is carrying with them when they're fleeing persecution from their home in the middle of the night and going through the desert and going through the buses and going through the water and how much do you think they're carrying with them when they come here? when I see the refugees, and I think some of you, from what I've been told, have volunteered to help resettle refugees, to help them come back into their car. I don't know if any of you have done airport pickups, but they come in a blue bag. They have a plastic grocery, not the big one, blue bag, and it's basically has their paperwork in it from the UN. There's barely any clothes on their back. We're lucky we can have that, and that's it. So you tell me how many rights and responsibilities they actually have. And that's the way the law is. All right, so, yes.
Hold on.
United States, if you're a foreign national or you're undocumented, are you still protected by the Constitution?
You're a ringer, right?
She said if you're I'm gonna get to undocumented. She's always ahead of the game there. She said if you're undocumented, do you have any protections under the United States Constitution? And I don't know if you guys ever read the Constitution for pleasure or for fun. I know we read the Bible and we know what the Bible says, but there's really no, the Constitution will protect anyone who allegedly committed a crime because we're going to give you that right to a lawyer. We're going to read to you your Miranda rights. We're going to tell you have the right not to speak. You have all these rights, but when someone's picked up as an immigrant, none of that's being said, nor does it have to. Do you know why a lot of it isn't? Because they're not committing crimes. Immigration is civil in nature. It is not civil, but it is civil in nature, has civil background. And an immigrant who comes in undocumented, as Attorney Cozart Martin has said, they come in undocumented, they don't have papers. That's a civil infraction. That's like my accountant, I always give this example. I gave my accountant my kids' names, age, date of birth. He filed. I looked at the filing after I signed it, not before, and I saw my favorite child was not included in our tax returns, and I had to amend it. I just committed a civil infraction because I didn't put all my children down. I had to amend it and do the right paperwork, and I did that, right? That's what an immigrant's do. It's paperwork, right? The only time that a immigration case becomes criminal is if the immigrant comes into the United States, then gets deported back to their home country, and then comes back in again without documentation. That's when it becomes a crime. Does that make sense? And even then, you're still not afforded a right to an attorney under our constitutional protections. So we have push factors, like we talked about this, persecution, why people come to the United States. And then we have pull factors, so some of them are fleeing, as one of the gentlemen had said here, they're fleeing persecution. Some of them are saying, I want to actively come to the United States for jobs, for safety, for education. A lot of parents saying, hey, look, I have no hope. I know I could work here, but I want my kid to have school. And they can't get school in their home country. So there's push-pull factors that we can talk about, and I think a lot of you are aware of why they come. Oops. We have global crisis. We've seen in the news, Syria, Afghanistan, Ukraine issues. These are reasons why people leave for that persecution. And sometimes reasons why you see temporary protective status being given to certain people, which is now being taken away at the right of the executive branch to be able to do that. Undocumented immigration was the next thing, and we talked about this. It becomes a crime the second time you want to come in unlawfully, right? And there's a lot of examples of cases that I have had where I represented immigrants who did not commit a crime, whose paperwork is being processed, and who even recently have people who unidentified vehicles with masks on their face come in to their home or their family's home and take them away. And when they are asked, why are you doing this? The only words that come out of their mouth are immigration. So can you imagine you eating dinner and someone come in and unmark car, unmark view, unmark everything and take you away and you ask why and they say criminal. You don't know anything more. Like it's a topic, right? It's just a subject matter, right? Like you don't even know what that means, right? So there are a lot of real life examples. You're seeing a lot go on in Minnesota. I'm guessing a lot of people have questions that I want to answer that you're reading and seeing. We have colleagues in Minnesota, former judges in Minnesota who I've been talking to who, like, what you're seeing is what they're seeing, and they're boots on the ground trying to really help because a lot of people are being taken away, and a lot of them have pending applications, which is normal protocol is when you have a pending application, you have to wait for that to be accepted, rejected, or denied, or approved in order for anything to happen. Usually it's a safety net because it's pending, because you're trying to be legal, right? You're coming in, you're doing the right thing, you're following the law, you're applying as told, and like the refugee situation where we're telling you, you've done all the applications, they've actually been approved, and they have to finish the paperwork because they can't do it anywhere else but in America, and now they can get picked up. So
Tania, I see some people are writing some questions.
Yeah.
So I'm going to walk around and collect them. But one of the questions we've had is, could you tell us a little bit about that experience that you had of suddenly being relieved of your duties, and then how is that impacting? I mean, we know it's impacting, but how is that going to play out with all of these people who need to get through this process? So if you have a question, hold your card up and I'll come and collect it.
So there was a slight trauma when I came here. I was going to come to Mass and I was late. I was 15 minutes late. And I'm like, I don't think they want me walking into church so late, so I'm going to go get coffee. And the only coffee place I knew was the usual coffee place I'd go when I was working at the court. So I passed the court and I went to get the coffee, and I had a lot of feelings and emotions about that. What I'm going to tell you is important. It is important because an infringement on an immigrant's right is also an infringement on our rights, right? Because we're all humans here. I'm going to tell you my feelings. It's hard for me to talk about it because, I was a federal employee who got paid pretty well, and I lost my job. There are immigrants who are eating dinner with their family and getting torn out of their home, and their parents and their kids are being abandoned. It's a different, we're here to talk about immigration. These are two totally different things. Like, I came home to my husband, whose company was kind enough to put me on their insurance plan because I was not given any documentation when I was terminated. I was literally on the bench, on the record, and escorted out of the building. Like I was a criminal. And no one knew a reason why. I asked multiple times, what is happening, why? No one can tell me why I was being terminated. It's been a year and I still don't know why, and I'm under current litigation where they should be answering that question and they have not. But I came home to my husband, whose company was like, well, we have to have proof of your life change, but I had no paperwork to show I was fired. You can't get unemployment because they still think you're working there, and so there's a lot of things that I couldn't do, but people were there to help me, and I was able to get through this, and I have all my old work, like Catholic Church, everyone called me and was like, hey, do you need a job? I'll give you a job. What do you need? I went back to the prosecutor's office. I'm okay. I don't know that I could say the same thing about other people who are in that courthouse every day, who go in and who now, when they go in to appear for their hearing, are getting picked up by ICE agents and put in prison. Like Youngstown Penitentiary, they're being put in prison. I went home. So yeah, I want to talk to you about it and tell you it's not fair and it's not right, what's happening to federal employees. It's not legal, and that's my lawsuit. But I'm fighting that. I'm fighting back on that. But with immigrants, who's fighting there, right? They're following the rules, being told to go to court, and me as a judge would say to them, if you fail to appear, I can issue an order removing you from the United States on the spot. And we do that as judges. So you either come and you get picked up by ICE and put in prison, or you don't come and the judge we'll remove you from the United States. Those are your choices.
So we have a question. When we, any of us, show up in immigration court to accompany someone at a hearing, even if we just observe silently from the gallery, does the judge notice? Does it matter? How?
So that's a great question, and I think about that. So I did a pro bono case that Attorney Cozart Martin had helped me with. Recently, I had to go back into the court. It was my first time back. And when I came back, this was a gentleman who I had represented in private practice. My current employer, like I work for the government, I work for the prosecutor's office, right? He allowed me to do a pro bono case for bond in this case because I had just known this gentleman for a long time. And when I got there, he was well entrenched in his community in Paynesville. And when I got there, there was about 40 community members there. Amazing. And so it was really amazing. I might cry because I did cry when I walked in for a whole slew of reasons, but one of them being a lot of pride by the fact that our community came in to help an individual who has contributed to his community. Like he has kids in the community. He's a great person. Following the law, just really randomly got picked up. I saw it on video. His family had sent it to me by ICE without a word, without being told a reason why except immigration. And, he was in prison for 2 weeks. His wife was pregnant at the time and lost the baby while he was in prison because there was just so much stress for that family. And this community came out, 40 people, and some of them were like, I don't know him, but I heard that someone who knows someone who knows someone who knows him, is here, and we want to help him. And when I walked in, the staff from the court came up. It's their first time seeing me since I was escorted out of the building, and they're like, I've never seen this. Who is this guy? I've never seen this many people here. The staff noticed. Trust me, the judges noticed. Everybody noticed. And I think it mattered. The courtroom was packed. And the judge did rightfully, legally issue a decision that family was able to then use to release my client. And it matters. Now, the judges know who's in the courtroom, they can see him. The staff knows who's in the courtroom, they can see him. I do think we have to be careful. If every person comes in with 40 people, it might not mean anything anymore because everyone has 40 people. I'm just saying that this is more of a strategic thing. I'm not legally speaking to you in this. I'm just like, if every case I was in the bench and I saw 40 people backing it, it might not mean as much if it happens that way. But when it happens and it's rare, it means something because the community is coming out for this person. And I know that a lot of people are trying to do that. But if you know someone and you want to help someone, or you know someone who knows someone, you want to help someone, yeah, definitely go. It makes a difference that the community is backing them. I think the judges pay attention to that. I do.
Question. Can you guys hear me? Question kind of related. I'm an immigration court monitor.
I recognize you. Were you there that day? Like there's something familiar. You look familiar to me.
Okay.
You look very familiar to me.
Okay. Anyway.
Yeah.
So I go every 2 weeks for a 4-hour shift, whatever. My question that I still don't understand is with the whole ICE can come in and take people who are going through the process, I still don't understand that. Why? And then my other question related is why is it so much more of a thing, let's say in New York? We've all seen, 26 Federal Plaza or whatever that is. You see all the stories and thank God, knock on wood, I have not witnessed that in Cleveland on the days that I've been there. So why is it different between courts?
So great question. So court monitoring, judges do notice when you're court monitoring. Some judges like it, some don't. I mean, just imagine being at work and being watched, everything you do. Now, I don't mind it because when the court monitoring process happened, I was at Catholic Charities and I was the lawyer who was reaping the benefit of the knowledge that you were bringing in from that court monitoring, right? The statistics, how many people are undocumented, how many aren't, what are the A numbers, who needs to be represented. Oh, there was a kid that came in and said their dad's name is so-and-so. Now I know their A number and I could go help them. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to do that. So thank you for your work, because it is important. I didn't mind your work because it helped me. But then when I was a judge and people are sitting in there, it does feel a little uncomfortable. It does, because you're being watched. But I'm like, I have to tell myself, like, let them watch, right? Because I'm doing the right thing. I'm following the law, and it's good. It's a public space. It's a government space that you're allowed to be in and you're allowed to do. So more power to you. Keep doing it. And yes, the judges notice, but they'll get over it, right? Now, as it pertains to what's happening in Ohio, as opposed to New York or Minnesota, and what you're seeing in the news, Ohio, I think, right now is still what it was, right? Like, ICE is here, right? There are things that are happening, but it's not to that level because, we don't have the National Guard here. We do have unmarked vehicles, which is a little bit different, and we have more people being detained. We have Youngstown being reopened. We have things that are happening due to a change of administration, but it's not as bad as others. And maybe it's not as bad as others because we're traditionally a more conservative state. We have one of the highest deportation rates of our courthouse in all the nation. And so, there are mayors who I've spoken to about what do you do? Like, people want to know what we're going to do to protect immigrants or not protect immigrants. What is our decision? How are we taking this? And I think, less is more. If don't rock the boat, right? Like, if things are the way they are, let's be happy with that. We don't want it to get worse. It could get worse. We've seen it get worse in terms of if you're thinking about immigrant rights. Now, other people might view it a different way. They might say, well, this is protection, so I want it. But right now, I think Ohio isn't looked on the way New York and other states are because of how conservative Ohio is. I will say your state legislators are about to pass legislation that was, I think, already passed in the Senate and might be in the House right now, and I have the Senate bill number if you need it. But it is legislation in Ohio from your local state reps where local law enforcement can pick up anyone who appears to be violating immigration rules. I'm going to guess none of you are appearing to violate immigration law. What does appear mean? What do you think it means? And from what I'm being told from our legislators is they do believe it will pass. So right now, local law enforcement doesn't have any obligation to enforce federal law. They don't have any power to do that, actually. They can't, because they can only enforce state law. And so this is going to open that door a little bit more to them to say, why don't we start investigating people who appear to be violating immigration law.
We have a couple more. I'm going to read two of them. They're a little bit mechanical. How many federal immigration judges lost their jobs in this administration? And then another question is, what benefits do immigrants and refugees receive upon arrival? if any, I guess.
Okay. So about 100 have lost their jobs. 100 judges have lost their jobs. I was the first in the United States to be terminated. It has, and I think there was an older question where you said, what does that impact? Well, I could tell you with my caseload, I had 4,000 active cases, and there was thousands others that kind of got lost into the system, right? People they're not getting adjudicated. People's hearings, they had hearings before me, they got canceled. They're being thrown on other judges' dockets, and this is all over the nation. There's some courts that went from like 11 judges to 2 judges. So, we have millions of cases on our dockets in America, and you have 100 judges less who are adjudicating them. So you do the math, we're not administratively getting through these cases. So that's the effect of that. Now, the next part of the question is, what are benefits that refugees get? Well, the benefit the refugee gets is in a year they get to apply for a green card. They get to be here safely because they were allowed to be here. They were accepted to be here. They were, background checked and all that and applied to be here. They could stay here safely and get their green card and be in America, right? They also get benefits like 90 days, like Catholic Charities would have 90 days to give you a home, food, get you a job. We had to get you a job in 90 days, and certain benefits like that. Now, unless you don't get those, public benefits until you're a citizen, but there are some public benefits that green card holders can get, refugees can get through the public. But other than that, you have to be a citizen to obtain any other public benefits.
Okay, I think I'm going to read another question, but piggyback off of that. I think a lot of people think that not yet legal immigrants can get SNAP, food stamp, and things like that. Is that accurate?
So, no immigrants can get any benefits.
Okay.
The only people who get any sort of little benefit are the refugees for the first 90 days. And it's a whole system I'm not going to get into, but refugees can get certain public benefits. It's part of the deal that's being made to allow, for humanitarian purposes, to allow refugees in each country. You feed them, you clothe them, you house them. And there is a question, go ahead.
Well, it's just to follow on what you're saying about refugees. Are they cutting those benefits? I know there's conversation about SNAP and healthcare and big, beautiful bill. What are you seeing?
Great question.
Can you repeat
Thank
it?
you.
Can you repeat
So
it?
the question is, well, are they cutting those benefits to the refugees? And the answer is yes. They're starting to cut those. I mean, they're now saying they will get benefits when they're put in prison because they'll have food, shelter. Sorry, I said it. But it is true. That is the benefit they will be getting. Sorry, I said it.
Another question was, what is current status of someone who has asylum status but not yet a green card, such as an Afghanistan citizen? Not sure.
So remember, okay, let me see if I could break this down. So when a client comes into my office and says, hey, do I have any benefit? Is there any way I could stay in the United States? There's a few things that go through my head, like my issue spotting, to see if this person qualifies to stay in the United States. Are you a family member of any U.S. citizens? If you're a spouse, even better. But even brother, sister, mom, dad, that counts too. So are you a family member? Do you have any humanitarian things? Do you fear persecution in your home country? That's asylum, right? There's other humanitarian things that might get confused with some of the Afghan stuff. So that's why I want to make sure we're all on board. There's temporary protective status, which has been limited now. But that's like a temporary status that allows you to work in the United States. No public benefits, you just are allowed to work in the United States. And you can stay here until the United States says, no, you cannot stay here anymore. It's not a green card, it's nothing. But it's a humanitarian thing, and a lot of, Haitians have that. There were some Afghans that had that. Syrians had it. And the president can pick who gets it, right? Which country gets it. And our president is taking it away from certain countries, right? Like Venezuelans, they had that temporary status, but it wasn't, you were not a green card holder. You still don't have papers. You just temporarily have them for now, right? And so there's humanitarian, there's family members, there's work. I think about, do you have an employer or degree, or do you have schooling? Schooling is another one. Those are the things that I go through. I feel like there's always one more, and I forget which one is in my head that I think about. But it's essentially humanitarian, family, work, school, that you want to see if they qualify. And there's so many exceptions and weird nuances about all of it. That's the beauty and the sadness of immigration law, right? The beauty of it is it's challenging and complex, and there's so many hands inside of it, but the sadness is it really prevents a lot of people from being able to follow the law. And so, but those are the categories. Now, when we're talking about Afghans, if we want to just put them into that asylum one, the one who came and has a pending application, came to the United States, says, I have a fear of returning to my home country, please protect me. They submit their application, it comes to the court, and it's being adjudicated, right? And it takes years, because I was already setting just pre-trials out a year and a half. To get to trial, it probably would have been about 3 years on my docket, and now I know it's worse. So while it's pending, the asylee does not have any benefits. They used to not even be able to allowed to work. I mean, now they can a little, but not much, and it's going away. And so, like, for years, people would have to sit there and they can't work. They're not allowed. So, you know, they don't really get any benefits. The refugees are different, remember, because they went through this whole process before they got here. So they have to work. Like, that was our job as, you know, at Catholic Charities, is we had to resettle them and get them into a job and get them working within those 90 days, which is very hard. But they're a little different, and they do get benefits. I hope that answers the question.
Mark, did you want to follow up on that? Because I have another question.
He said follow up.
Okay.
Someone who has been granted asylum already, granted, but does not have a green card.
Oh.
That was my question.
Oh.
What's their status currently?
A granted asylee, like that's their status. Like, they don't have any permanency until they get that green card. And that's where legally you can say that you can put them in prison while they're waiting for that green card. I mean, I don't know why our executive branch, like, people are going to fight that and say that is, a judge granted them the ability to stay in the United States, or that they have the ability to have been granted asylum, that they have proven that. But that ability doesn't give them the documentation to live and work. Do you understand what I'm saying? You still have to go to USCIS and apply for that. The judge is just saying you met the legal requirements to meet asylum. I hope that makes sense. It gets really confusing. And taking that grant is your reason to get a green card. Like, you're going to take that to USCIS, and you're going to say, hey, look, a judge said I have been granted asylum. Now can you give me permanent residency? Does that make sense? Like, anytime you want a legal document to stay in the United, like citizenship or a green card, you have to have a reason to get it. Asylum is your reason to get it. So you're in this limbo when you're granted asylum that's like the pending application, which usually protects you, right? But it doesn't anymore. Can you say that again?
How long does it?
Usually a year, right? Usually about a year. I mean, no. From the asylum grant to the grant of the green card. By the time you apply and get the grant, it's about a year. I don't know if you've noticed it going any longer anymore.
So going up to a year.
Right now. That's right.
It's 12 years to even get an interview.
Well, and then remember in front of me, but she's saying before the grant, right? So the process of asylum could take a very long time. It could take decades if you're a refugee. It could take at least 10, 12 years waiting for an interview. In the court, 5 years, 4 years. You know, that process is a long time, but I thought your question was once it's granted, it's about a year to get the permanent green card, and he's asking, what is that year? What status are you? Well, you're just an approved asylee. You still have to ask the government to give you that green card based on your approved asylum status.
So this is an interesting question that shifts things a little bit. How does U.S. immigration situation compare to Europe?
I'm no expert on foreign policies and rules, so I'm just going to say I know like Canada has very similar rules to us, the asylum, like what you have to prove and so forth. But their processes go faster, and they're looked at with a more measured eye. I'm going to caveat all this and say that I am running for judge and governed by the rules of judicial conduct. And these opinions are my own, and if you were ever in front of me, I would make sure to give you a very fair, I promise you that, a very fair and even measured hand at the law. I will make sure I will look at it fairly and accurately. So, yeah.
Okay, so another question, when people are detained, why are they sent so far away, either in the States, or why are they being sent to third world countries that they have nothing to do with? So the question is, why are people being sent to different countries? And that's being litigated currently. And the law, I could just tell you the law, like, usually the way it worked was you're supposed to be sent to your home country if you're being deported from the United States. If your home country refuses you, which happens a lot, right? Because there's countries who maybe don't want someone because they committed a crime. Or there's countries who are not real countries, like Palestine, that's a territory, right? And they can't because they're not a country yet. And so if they decline, our country has the ability to make an agreement with a third country to bring you there. That's usually the process. The process was usually they try to deport you to your home country, then they go to a third country. Now the process, I don't know that they're even trying to take you to your home country, they're just going to a third country. That's what I've been seeing in the news and reading and talking to lawyers about. I have not personally seen it, but that's what I'm hearing, and I don't know if any other lawyers in this room would have any other opinions on that. Really need you to.
What now you have to prove is not only you can't be sent to your home country, but then you have to prove why you also can't be sent to other countries. And every country now has come up with, not every country, I think there's 10 or 15 of them now, that have come up with who they will take, who they won't take. And so now you have to tell your client, okay, well, we know why you can't go back to Venezuela because that's why you came to the United States, but why can't you go to Belize? You don't live there, you don't know anybody there, you've never worked there, you may or may not speak the language, but you're gonna have to prove to Tania why you can't go there. So now you have not only one country, but you potentially have 3 countries you can't argue why your client can't go to some other country.
And that is currently being litigated like a lot, you know. And so I remember when I was on the bench, I remember one gentleman, because I designate, the judge designates the country you're going to be removed to, and it's always the country you're from, right? Well, I have to ask the immigrant, well, what country would you like to be designated to? And they always say, like, my home country, right? Even though they're claiming asylum, or they'll say, I do not designate. They don't have to. I remember one person was like, Canada. And I was like, right on, right, I gotcha. But you got to prove some sort of connection to Canada. Well, it's not that way anymore, so, yeah.
Joe, we can't hear you. The people online can't hear you.
Earlier on, you spoke about how the Ohio court had a record that I guess I would call it more conservative, that it was sending more people than some other courts.
Yeah.
Is that because of judge discretion, or what causes that sort of a difference in courts?
That's a great question. So the question was, why is Ohio more conservative, and why do they have a higher deportation rate or denial of asylum? It's really denial of asylum applications, and I think there's a lot of factors that play into it. Like I believe that I'm searching for words. So strike that. So when a judge makes a decision on an asylum case, they have to weigh the facts and they have to weigh the law. And there are certain countries that are persecuting individuals in certain ways that, generally speaking, could, that's known, right, because part of your evidence is research on what these countries are doing, can be proven easier and better because it's just more known that these countries are persecuting in this way, right? You know, so a lot of times people, you know, like my family, and it was part of my introduction, like my, you know, uncle came to Akron, and then all my family came to Akron. There's so many Lebanese people in Akron, and we have the whole church, and same with Cleveland. Like, there's more people located in Cleveland from my parents' village than there are actually in their village anymore in Lebanon. Because once one comes, they all come. And so certain states, they'll come to certain countries who might have more facts that help their case a little bit better in the world, like in the news, might go to a different state and be more of that culture in that state. And some states might get other countries that don't have that backing as much, right? That news backing. And then there are other states, like New York, who have, like, give every immigrant a lawyer. Like, having a lawyer, the studies have been very clear, increases your chances of winning an asylum case. So there's a lot of factors that play into it by state. And I think there is a pattern in certain states as where you have a higher grant rate, and then you'll see that the grants come from certain countries than others. And remember, it's not just the research, it's like, you know, how educated people come from that country are. How much are their connections to be able to get affidavits back home and, you know, to back what they're saying. And certain countries can do it better than others, I guess, because you still have to prove the case. And so I think Ohio has a higher deportation rate. Yes, because there's conservative thinking for sure. But you know, I have a lot of respect for my colleagues on the bench. I do believe everyone wants to make sure they're following the law and applying the law fairly to the set of facts. And I think it's a hard question, and I'm trying to find the right words, and I hope I did for you. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
It's the judges and it's the administration, right? So the administration basically said, even though you can grant bond, we are telling you not to grant bond, even though they're lawfully eligible for it, right? And so every administration runs the federal government differently, and their impact on immigration specifically is tremendous. This administration has, obviously, as we all know, has come out as very anti-immigrant. Tania can't say this, but I can say the court in Cleveland is literally the worst court in the country. And literally, logistically, if you look at the statistics, their grant rate is the worst in the country. I think it has an impact, number one, because of the administration, and number two, because of how the judges are ruling. There is one judge in Cleveland specifically who has a 99.9% denial rate. That isn't because the applicants can't show that they're eligible for asylum. It statistically can't be, right? So I'll say it for her.
So, now hold on. We've got a lot of people who've written questions. I want to honor those. So one of them ties into that. What, if any, is the role of Congress? Is Congress supposed to be doing anything on this?
Oh, yeah. I mean, remember, I started this by saying, like, whatever your views are on immigration, and I hope that I'm giving you a perspective that gives you facts for you to make your opinions. I don't want to skew in any way, and especially in my position, don't want to ever make you think that I skew. But who you vote for matters. So whatever you think, you need to look at what your Congress people and who's running for office, what they're thinking. Congress especially. Remember, the judiciary doesn't make law. We don't make law. We just apply the law. And this is a good example of how that matters. So how many of you have heard of DACA? Right. Oh, great. I knew you got, okay. So DACA is a form of relief that was issued by President Obama that's temporary, kind of like that TPS, right? for individuals who are kids who came over with their parents from a foreign country and they were undocumented. And Obama, the executive branch, had said, we want to let these people work and go to school, because oftentimes they didn't even know they weren't legal until they asked their parents for a social security number to apply for a job, and their parents are like, ooh, we don't have one. And so it's temporary, and remember, our executive branch can do these temporary orders. It's just, here, we're going to give you work authorization so you can get a social security number so you can go to school. You have to go to school or work, and you can't have a significant criminal history in your background. And so all these students applied for DACA. They still have it for now. It's trying to be taken away. But this is legislation that I think back in the Obama time, I think his second term, I think it passed in the Senate, not the House. They almost passed legislation to give them a path to citizenship. They don't have it. Remember what I told you, in order to get a green card or citizenship, you have to have a reason. DACA is not a reason to get a citizenship or a green card. What they were going to try and do is say, okay, you're paying your taxes, you're working, you're staying out of trouble, we'll give you that path to get a green card and then ultimately to get citizenship. But that hasn't happened. And this is like something I felt that legislators would agree on. It's the kids, right? They just want to work. And I could tell you they were, like, when they were clients of mine, they were always so grateful for the opportunity to actually be able to stay in America and work and go to school. They always had their applications already drafted and done. And so then when I look at it and it's like perfect, they then would say thank you to me because like I did no work because they did it all, right? And they were just those kinds of kids, right? All of them. It's now a lot of controversy, but the impact, I bet you, if you look at those numbers, is great on how much they're working and contributing to society and our tax dollars. And that's like, those are things Congress can change, and you can vote accordingly if you want that. It's one little way, because I often think about like how do we fix this broken system? And I think about it a lot, and it's very hard to come up with a reason and with a all-encompassing solution, right? Because I think if you're going to fix immigration, you have to look at two things. You have to look at who wants to come in and how do we want that regulated, and then so from outside in, and then you have to think about all the people who are inside, like the DACA, who need documentation. That's millions of people. And that's comprehensive immigration reform. You need both. If you want to just take a piece of immigration and say, how do we make a difference, this could be a good starting point, this conversation. So your legislators are very important. I just told you about legislation in Ohio that's potentially going to be passed where your local law enforcement, who I know is very busy, can now get a lot busier by enforcing immigration laws for people who appear to be violating federal law. So it makes a huge difference.
Great. So this person writing this question says, today's immigration state is courtesy of Project 25. After the midterms, assuming that voting is not centrally controlled, so here's the real question. What's the best way to design U.S. immigration?
You guys, I think about it all the time, like to design it. I mean, so immigration law is governed by a lot of different things, right? So you have federal code, right, that tells us, judges, what to do. You also have attorney general memos that tell us, judges, what to do. You have state circuit court that controls how facts are, like the law too, or is interpreted. You have local state criminal code, like the Ohio Revised Code, that can control that. You have the federal criminal code. You have presidential memorandums. You have so many different laws that govern what happens in immigration court, and there's so many different effects, so many different laws coming at you at the same time, and every day is a different day in terms of what we're allowed to do and not allowed to do to tell our clients to properly advise our clients, right? So you really have to be up to date with the laws, and I think because there's so many different avenues that affect immigration, and like I said, you also have to consider the situation inside the United States and outside the United States, it takes a lot. It takes a lot. And Project 2025 really thought about it a lot. They did. And what they started with is the judiciary, right? They had listed a lot of things on what they wanted to do with the judiciary and due process. And it was a very comprehensive plan, and it's being followed from what I'm seeing. And if you're asking me what the solution is, I haven't come up with that in my head. I just know, and that's why I love these conversations, because people talk to me about, their situations and what they've seen. Like I said, whatever the solution is, it has to affect both internal and external. And I think it's really hard because every one thing hits on another. And I think I find it interesting that like the immigration is such a political hot topic. Like I could say in 23, when there were the elections that were going on, it was such a hot topic, and everyone was talking about how we need to get through our backlog and how, the judiciary needs to work through this caseload. And then when the budget time came up, they reduced our budget. So I don't think that's the way to solve immigration. And maybe it's done by design. I don't know. I'm curious as to why it is a hot topic, right? Because we're all human beings. Criminal law criminal law is so simple. It's like the Ohio Revised Code, and you either plea or you go to trial, and there it is, right? But for some reason, immigration is just a hot mess, and I think it should take a lot of minds, and I think that you need a lot of diverse thinking minds on every aspect, and that's the only way it's going to happen. I'm sorry, I don't really have an answer for how to actually fix it.
We've got people who've written questions. I need to read those off. We have time for just a few more. And I found this one very interesting. What are some of the database research sources and references for judges to make their decisions? Are those of, sure, I can't read it, depending on judges themselves or resources as part of a standard process?
I'm not sure I understand the question. I'm going to repeat it. What do we base our decisions on?
It's kind of a technical question of what kind of databases are used.
Go ahead.
Of the research, or what kind of database you or any of the judges are relying on as reference, or
so
that is you do it as individual, or it's there is a shared resource as part of the standard process or anything, because whatever is shown in the data or the research is, if not all the time, most of the times it can be biased, or it's for whatever, especially when you're trying to decide if any person basically is for their future life, it's are they safe here or are they safe when they're back?
So the judge is only allowed to look at what's in front of them. I can't do my own extra research. I can only make my decision based on the evidence that's been presented. That's why the statistics show that when there's a lawyer involved, because a lawyer knows how to admit evidence into the record, it's a whole process, right? That's part of the reason why when a lawyer is involved, the approval of asylum cases is higher, right? Because they could know where to find the evidence, because the immigrants usually don't come with evidence in their pocket, right? So the judges can only look at what's in front of them, what has been admitted into evidence. Now, I think for judges, we have to think about what goes on in their heads. And what I think we all have to be aware of is we have bias, all of us, always, right? And the important thing is you're aware of it as a judge. I know I come from a family of immigrants. So I know what they did and what they did to come here, and that could make me more biased towards immigrants. It could, but I'm very well aware of it. And I work very hard to not let that influence my decision. What influences my decision is the law and the facts that are admitted before me, and that's it. But I think we have to also think about the fact that we're human. Like, there's things that I've learned in my life by working with immigrants, like how they communicate. And for example, certain individuals from Asian and African countries will not look at you in the eye as a judge because it's respect. So when they testify straight on. Now, I know that because I had clients who would never look at me in the eye, and the way I like to show my honesty is to make sure I'm looking at you in the eye and talking to you to your face. Some judges might think that that means that you're not being honest, and they might make a decision accordingly. It could happen, right? Because we're human. My experiences my biases might help me to understand that they're doing it because it's cultural. So that might help me make a more informed decision, but that's not evidence in the record. It's just knowledge that I have that helps me. And I'm fully aware of it, and I'm okay with that. I'm not okay with the fact, well, my parents are immigrants, so I got to grant this application. That's not okay, right, for me to say. That's not following the law. Now, think about a judge who is getting emails from their boss on a regular basis, usually around 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and it's like ding, 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 and they're telling you, while you have anonymity in your courtroom and can make your decisions, we highly encourage you to make this decision. And then you're seeing your colleagues being walked off the bench. You have to think about it, right? We're all human, we're all doing our best, but does that affect you? I mean,
so we have a lot of questions. We're going to ask one more question. We're close to 2 o'clock, and then we'll do a formal thank you. And then if you can hang out a little bit longer,
for sure.
If people still have questions, we'll have a little more casual time there. But this one is close to us, our home in Ohio. Can you advise on the current status of Haitians working in Springfield?
Oh, Springfield, I hear. Springfield might be in for it soon. I hear that they might be sending the National Guard to Springfield. And the Haitian rules are, they were temporary. Remember, that doesn't give you a green card. And I remember when the whole Haitian thing came up, there were some individuals, like maybe mayors or some elected officials that were like, they're here legally. And then there's some lawyers who were like, well, it's not technically legal, but they were legally here. They had legal temporary protective status that allows them to be here, which I think some people were worried would confuse the public to think that they had a green card. They didn't, they don't, they're temporary. It's being adjudicated. The executive branch can take away temporary protective status. They can, that's legal. So that's where we're at, right? And I do have heard rumblings that the National Guard will be coming in. I've heard that.
Thank you so much. This has been fascinating.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Again, we really appreciate you, and we love Akron. We're our Akronites. We have Akron members in our community.
Hi.
That's great. But again, thank you all for coming. If you would like to stick around a little bit longer, we'll have casual conversation. We do continue this Informed Voter series throughout the year, and we have several other programs that are through the arts, education. We have a retreat coming up, so please check our website if you're interested in participating in any of those. I'd like to really thank Barb Belovich and Tony, who chair our education committee, for coordinating. So thank you so much, and if you need to get on your way, appreciate that. And again, thank you to our speaker.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you for being here, for letting me be here. It was very nice. Great questions. Great. I hope so.